What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. This is a double or combo edition of the Pay-Per-Viewpoint. It's time to talk about AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door pay-per-view, as well as the WWE NXT HEATWAVE premium live event. Both just went down today, one after the other one, and there wasn't enough time in between for me to do one that was separate for Forbidden Door, because by, half hour later or so, it was already going to go into the next one. So we're doing a combo edition for this, which means, of course, I'm going to get into both of them, as you can see by the sidebars right now on the video, at least. If you're listening to audio only, then obviously you can't see that. But wherever it is that you're listening, thank you for tuning in, whether you are in the live chat, where are you listening after the fact, if you're on Spotify, Amazon Music, Facebook, Twitter, I don't know, whatever, combination of things. Wherever you are, leave a comment below, or in whatever fashion that we do have that over there. Keep in mind, too, that we also have the Discord server. Let me put that promotional thing up on there. There we go. I've got my graphics are all over the place here. There we go. Now I got it set up. The Discord channel, of course, all those different channels that we have over there for the server are a great way for you to just chat it up at any point in time, just totally random. And, I welcome, come one, come all to talk about either the Smark Moment stuff or the Fanboys Anonymous stuff, too. Maybe you want to talk about movies, TV shows, video games, whatever it might be. There's no dedicated extra Fanboys Anonymous thing. Figured I'd kind of lump them all in together. So if you are a Discord person, then, consider joining that and keep the discussion going. Keep in mind, though, if you are on YouTube in particular, hit the like button on this video, subscribe, ring that notification bell, get your email alerts set up for the post shows and the other kind of live content that we do here, because maybe you missed out on this one because you didn't know that I was live. That's the best way to do that. You'll get an email and it'll alert you when I actually am going live, like specifically right then and there. So if that's something, keep that in mind too. If you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, you can do that in a couple different ways. You could just be on patreon.com/smarkoutmoment. You could pick up some Redbubble or TeePublic merchandise, or you can, if you are on YouTube, click on the thanks button or the join button, get yourself access to the same stuff as the Patreon, with a slight difference of it being a little bit better, because if we do something that is live, then you can join us live for that as well. Of course, anything like that's greatly, greatly appreciated. So keep that in mind. What is wrong with my setup tonight? There we go. Now I've got it set up. I got all the Forbidden Door graphic and HEATWAVE graphic and all. Forgot that I did it in a different way than I normally do. That's what threw me off. So I guess technically I could just kind of like get rid of the HEATWAVE thing on the side here, because Forbidden Door is what we're going to talk about first. Although I didn't make two of the HEATWAVE things, so I don't know. I'll just keep these both up. Point being, I'm going to talk about both. Talk about AEW first, then we'll go into WWE. So if you're like, you don't want to know what happened on the Forbidden Door thing, then, keep that in mind. But, same when it comes to HEATWAVE and all. I guess technically, maybe I should just kind of do the difference thing here. Maybe I will just, this isn't the right way of doing it. That's not the right way of doing it either. Let's see. Let's get this around. Let's do this in live fashion. And for anybody that is sort of like, oh, I only want the HEATWAVE section of this, then here we go. That's what we'll do. All right, so Forbidden Door first. Now I can actually pay attention to what's going on here. Forbidden Door, that was a long show from the AEW side of things, of course. And, in typical fashion, we had the half hour worth of talking, and then we led into the pre-show 0 hour element of this whole thing. An hour's worth of match, actually a little bit more than an hour's worth of action. They had 4 matches on the pre-show, and quick rundown for this. And I'll admit that this is going to be another one of those scenarios where I don't have too much to say about a lot of the matches for Forbidden Door, because they were just matches. And typically when I'm trying to analyze something and I'm trying to break down, where do I think it's going to go in the future and all, it's hard to really dissect matches that are just a series of moves and then somebody won and it means nothing. So, for instance, 8-man tag team match. Paragon, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong team with Yuya Uemura and El Desperado, and they beat Hechicero, Josh Alexander, and Crew. Why were Crew involved in the Don Callis family side of things? I don't know. But that team lost. Lance Archer then had a little brawl segment for, a minute or so with Tomohiro Ishii. So to me, it would have made more sense for Lance Archer to be involved in there and then Ishii to be on the other side or something and then to just do that segment there. But for some reason, they felt the need to throw Action Andretti and Lio Rush into the mix instead. Whatever. It is what it is. Didn't do anything for me. It's not to say that it was bad. Just doesn't do anything for me. GOA and Ricochet beat Jet Speed and Michael Oku. I don't know anything about Michael Oku, so this wasn't, something where I would be like, oh my God, I can't believe that he lost or something along those lines. He is just another one of those, he's just a guy. And Jet Speed can't seem to win a whole lot of matches lately. I don't know what's going on there, but they came up short again here. Match means nothing. It was fine. Moving on. Triangle of Madness and Megan Bayne beat Queen Amanada, Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander, and Harley Cameron. Good enough match. A lot of people involved that are pretty talented. It's an 8-woman tag. Again, it means nothing. I'll already go ahead and skip to something that happened later on the main card, which was a spillover of this, where I guess it was supposed to be that Queen Amanada and Thekla, not Thekla, were still fighting after all this time, which was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 matches later or so. So realistically they would not have been. But Queen Amanada and Thekla had a little brawl segment, spilled out into the entranceway. Julia Hart and Sky Blue came out. They started to make it a 3-on-1. I don't know why nobody else was going out to help, like Willow Nightingale and all. But Jamie Hayter made her return, and she's the one that chased off the Triangle of Madness. So now we got Hayter back into the mix. She had her moment in front of the the O2 Arena, the London crowd. So, to me, this is one of those things where, I understand why this match wasn't on the main card, but I also kind of understand why Tony Khan decided to throw this out there. He just wanted Jamie Hayter to have a moment. And, it could have been on the pre-show, perfectly fine. It could have been just a backstage segment brawl or something like that. They could have done this a couple different ways. Overall, I think that this is probably the best case scenario. But then again, the 8-woman tag doesn't really mean anything. So there's not really anything to talk about there. And then there's really nothing to sink your teeth into when it comes to the Trios Championship match. The Ops retain over the Bullet Club War Dogs, Robbie X, Clark Connors, and Drilla Maloney. 3 people from New Japan for them to have a match. It's Forbidden Door, so that makes sense. They're viable enough contenders as far as I'm aware from Bullet Club War Dogs being a group in New Japan. When I saw that this match was happening, I was kind of assuming that the belts wouldn't change hands, because why would they? But the titles stay exactly where they are. Totally fine. Okay. So anyway, the first match of the main card was Edge and Christian, or Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, beating Kip Sabian and Killswitch. Now, this proved to me that I was not super great on my predictions for both of these two events over the course of this night, because I was assuming that Killswitch would end up getting the win for his team, and that we would kind of extend this a little bit. Turns out they're not even going to go in the direction that I was expecting that they were going to go anyway. So I guess this, in retrospect, makes a little bit more sense. And in some ways as well, it's a little bit more confusing. We'll get into that in a moment. But Kip Sabian and Killswitch lose. Edge and Christian have their little moment. Fans are happy. I'm happy. It's fine. The match is not anything to write home about. Kyle Fletcher retained the AEW TNT Championship over Hiromu Takahashi, as expected. I did not anticipate any kind of cross-promotional brand title things happening over this card. Same thing when it comes to most of the matches that were on this show. If it was somebody from AEW defending against New Japan or vice versa, I just naturally assumed that the belts would stay exactly where they were. So Fletcher beating Takahashi, not at all of a surprise. Fletcher's not been champion super long, and if he would have dropped the belt, it would have been very shocking to me. Would have been shocking for me too if Mercedes Moné would have dropped the AEW TBS championship as well, but she didn't. Alex Winza, as they say, and Bozilla and Persephone all coming up short. So here's something for me to talk about, because Fletcher and Takahashi, they have a match, whatever. Fletcher's good in the ring. You're going to hear that repeated ad nauseum. It is what it is. Mercedes had a very good entrance idea, which got ruined. I'll probably talk about this again at the end of the year, but she has 9 belts now. So they had 8 royal guards with the typical setup of, the red outfit and like I don't want to call it a hat because it seems like disrespectful, but whatever the head thing is that they wear in the UK, there's got to be a term for it, but I don't know it. They had 8 of them out to like usher her to the ring and do their goose step kind of thing. I liked that idea, but then it goes into the CEO theme, and I hate the CEO theme. I hate it with a passion. So it went from 50% great entrance idea to, oh my God, I can't wait until this is over. I gotta be perfectly honest. When it comes to Persephone and Bozilla and Alex Windsor, I'm not super impressed. Like if I were to be, I'm never going to own a wrestling company. To be perfectly honest, I don't think I would ever want to. I'd be interested in, writing for WWE, for instance. That's much more my speed than AEW is, as it is. But like, I don't think that I would ever like own a wrestling company. I don't think I would want the headaches that go along with a lot of that stuff. And, I had my time working with OTW and stuff, so I know like some of that, here and there. But if I were like, plop me with X amount of dollars where I can start trying to sign people, I don't know if I would be like, oh my God, I can't wait to try to sign Alex Windsor, Persephone, or Bozilla. Frankly, with Bozilla, people were hyping her up over the past few days as like, oh my God, she's this like monster, huge, amazing talent. She didn't seem that big to me, to be honest. Like, is she supposed to be like, 6 whatever and X amount of pounds? And I was like, well, Megan Bain's taller than her, and Willow Nightingale's bigger than her, and Chris Statlander seems like she'd probably be taller than her, and maybe Charlotte's taller than her. Like, I don't know. I just didn't quite see it. And she hasn't been wrestling long, so that's one thing. But then again, so has Bailey Humphrey in WWE LFG. And to be perfectly honest, I don't see that much of a difference. Like, I haven't seen many like Bailey Humphrey matches outside of the LFG stuff. And even then I skipped forward some of that stuff because let's be honest, it doesn't matter. But the perception going into this with Bozilla for me, people hyped her up enough that I was expecting far more. She wasn't bad. It's not to be like crapping on her or anything, but I was expecting to be like wowed, and I wasn't. I don't see anything particularly fascinating when it comes to Alex Windsor. She seems to be just as on par with every single person that tends to be in AEW. And this has been a running theme for the entire history of this company. I don't like their women's division, and I haven't. And I'm getting very concerned at this point that I pretty much never will like their women's division in AEW. It's a combination of a couple different factors. One being, I don't think that they have the talent to go along with a big roster. And then I also think that they're just not booked all that well. So if it's somebody who is really talented, like admittedly Mercedes Moné is very talented, even though I don't connect with her character lately. And Toni Storm, I don't connect with her character, but I understand the popularity behind it. Athena, like there are talented people in here. I just don't feel excited about it the way that I do with like even the NXT women's division, even moving out Stephanie Vaquer and Roxanne Perez and doing what they've done recently with Jordan Grace and everything. Like the downsides to that, I still get more excited for that than anything that happens in AEW's women's division and ROH for that matter too. Like I'm completely tapped out for that. Like Red Velvet being over in ROH doesn't mean anything to me. And I liked Red Velvet when she was, like coming around. So, if I'm like, wow, I can't wait until Persephone comes onto the roster. No, not really. Oh, I can't wait until Bozilla comes in. I mean, maybe, maybe she could be a big deal in the future or whatever. But at least for this specific only match that I've seen, I wasn't going completely nuts over her. And Mercedes was like a pretty foregone conclusion for me too. So I was working against it in that match. So I wasn't really particularly thrilled about that match. Zack Sabre Jr. retains the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship over Nigel McGuinness, proving me wrong again in one way because I assumed that Daniel Garcia was going to get involved at some point. But not only did he not get involved, he actually just didn't do anything after the match either. He just, hugged Nigel, and it was just they're fine. So got that one wrong too. And for anybody that's curious if they think that I'm like being salty about this stuff or whatever, I don't care if I'm wrong about predictions. I'm, sometimes more excited if I'm wrong because a lot of these are predictable. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I fully admit it. Totally got that one wrong. Oh, I mean, I didn't totally get that wrong. I knew Zack Sabre Jr. was going to retain, but I totally got my prediction about Daniel Garcia wrong. And if they don't want to split them up, that's perfectly fine. If they would have, I don't know if I'd be particularly honest to be like, and I would have been super excited to see a feud between Nigel McGuinness and Daniel Garcia. It's probably fine. It's probably decent, but like, we're so inundated with pro wrestling these days. And, if I'm watching 3 hours practically of Raw, and I'm watching 2 hours of NXT, and then I'm watching Evolve, and I'm watching 2 hours of Dynamite, and then I'm not even watching TNA or like ROH, wherever on Thursdays, but then you got 2 more hours of SmackDown, you got Collision you should check out, you got the pay-per-views, which are just every weekend, multiple events now, and the LFG, and, it's just, if I'm overloaded with pro wrestling, or pretty much anything for that matter, you're going to need to give me something fascinating or something particularly fun for me to just not blend it all together and just be like, matches are matches, wins don't matter if they matter, they only matter if they matter, what losses don't matter if they don't matter, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what's happening a lot with like, Raw and SmackDown, even NXT, you'll talk about later on with the HEATWAVE side of things. Just across the board, it's overload of pro wrestling. So when something happens, like, are you interested in Nigel McGuinness versus Daniel Garcia? I would be if I wasn't watching 300 hours worth of TV a week about this kind of stuff. So less is more sometimes. And that's a very good example of something that on paper sounds like it could be a great match, but I'm probably going to be so burnt out about it that I'm not going to end up watching, especially if it ends up being on Collision or something. Then Collision, most of the nights, I tend not to bother even checking out because at that point, it's already Saturday. I'm moving on. I don't want to do that on the weekend, that kind of thing. So, congrats to Zack Sabre Jr. I don't know when he's supposed to be facing Konosuke Takeshita. I don't think that they announced that tonight. I'm assuming that they'll announce that, somewhat soon over on the New Japan side of things, but by the time we get to Wrestle Kingdom, Zack Sabre Jr. could have lost the title already. Maybe Takeshita is walking in as champion. I don't know. I don't follow New Japan all that well. So one new set of champions that we do have, though, Brodido wins the AEW World Tag Team Championship. And that's another one that I got wrong because I was assuming that FTR would be the ones that would end up pinning, Bandido or Brody King. So it's a 50-50 credit kind of thing. Like, I assumed that the Hurt Syndicate were going to lose. I assumed that they were not going to take the pin. I assumed that there was going to be interference, that there was going to be, this and that. And I just got the opposite of which team would end up pinning who. So Bandido and Brody King are the tag team champions. And for anybody who's curious, the extra interference was Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, GOA, and Ricochet getting involved in taking the Hurt Syndicate out of the mix. So they're not involved in the finish at all. The pin is just Bandido beats Harwood. I think it was Dax Harwood that took the pin. And then that, by the way, you don't want to see the pinfall either because it was botch. It was Brody King laying down, repositioning himself so that way Bandido could do, the move that they have between like flipping him. So that looked awkward already. Then Bandido kind of botches that. I don't know whose fault it is, if like Brody didn't get him up higher or whatever it might have been. But he usually like kicks him up, and I don't know how to like show this. Like he kicks him up that way. Poor example with my hands, but he usually kicks him and he flips and then he lands. And he sort of just like flipped a little bit earlier or something. So he didn't really land on Harwood as much as he should have. And then that led to a pinfall that ended up not getting a pinfall because I guess Wheeler was like getting involved and then he was supposed to and he wasn't at the time. Like the timing was off for this whole thing. So that led to, a secondary pinfall. And, they're going to just skip over that when they show like, and the champions or whatever. It's going to be like a flip and then it'll cut to like the, raising the hands or something like that. They'll bury that, and nobody will care. But I'm curious where they go with Brodido here, because again, I assumed that Edge and Christian were going to be the tag team champions and that they would win the belts from FTR pretty soon, maybe even as quickly as All Out. But now if Brodido are champions, then I can't see it being Brodido losing to Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Like, Cope and Cage are really not going to be in like, we immediately turn heel mode, and Brody King and Bandido aren't turning heel. So I guess FTR does just win the belts at some point, and it's later, and maybe this was like, maybe it's too obvious that FTR would win those belts, and maybe Tony Khan was like, you know, it would be kind of fun if we just give them the Brodido and then we can lose them, and then it could be a quick title reign or something. I don't know. Or maybe we're just dead wrong. Maybe the plan isn't to go FTR, Cope, and Christian. Maybe the plan is to go Cope and Christian win at another time, or even further down the line or something. I don't know, but that took me by surprise. That was one of the biggest surprises out of both of these shows for tonight. Kazuchika Okada retains the AEW Unified Championship, ugly name for the belt, ugly belt, and beats Swerve Strickland. Swerve is then basically written off television through an injury angle. Okada puts his leg in the steel steps and the ring barrier, the ring post, I should say, hits him with a steel chair a bunch of times. Prince Nana comes out, tries to help fend him off, and then Wardlow makes his return, and he beats up Prince Nana, a couple security guards. Wardlow is now a part of the Don Callis family. As far as Wardlow, sure, you know, he's had a couple starts and stops. I, at one point, thought that he was like one of the biggest, like, future of the company guys. I no longer feel like that after the past couple of years where that just hasn't played out super well. So putting him with the Don Callis family makes some sense. Don Callis family is the biggest heel group that's happening right now. So if you want to get some kind of extra rub through that, you can get him in tag team matches. You can put him against some big names without actually having to just be Wardlow versus Hangman Page or whoever it might be. And, you know, the problem with this, I think, is at one point, do the people that are in the Don Callis family just sort of fall by the wayside? Like, we have our jobbers in the group, like Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero are going to lose matches more than anybody else. Hechicero is not going to be particularly like the most protected person. But like Josh Alexander is getting a little lost in the shuffle, I think. And, you know, Kyle Fletcher's got a belt and Okada's got a belt. But I really don't think Okada needs to be in the Don Callis family. So I don't know. Maybe I'm like willing to toss Okada out of that. And then that opens up a little bit more room for Wardlow. And then, you know, Brian Cage is technically supposed to be part of this. So when he returns and you got Brian Cage and Lance Archer and Wardlow, do you need three really big guys like that? They're going to have to restructure a little bit. But, you know, Wardlow on his own versus Wardlow in the Don Callis family, I think that this is probably the better result going forward. And, you know, I think he'll be able to actually like make a little bit more steam if he's in this group than if he was on his own. So we'll see. Sucks that Swerve is getting written out. That just means that, you know, one of their big names is already out of the mix here. We'll talk about another one of them in a moment too. What else we have? Timeless Toni Storm retains the AEW Women's World Championship over Athena. Good match. Won by submission. I was a little bit surprised about that. And I don't have much to say. They worked well together. They did their thing. Storm is the forever champion, even though Athena is the forever champion. Let me mute my phone. You don't need to hear this buzzing. And, you know, other people talking about the pay-per-view. They should be on the live chat. That's what they should be doing. That's what all you should be doing. So Storm just keeps the belt over and over and over again. I'm going to continue to basically just be like, all right, well, I'll wait until she loses the belt before I really analyze anything more. I don't know who the next champion is. Not even going to put out a prediction, you know. If it wasn't going to be Mercedes and it wasn't going to be Athena, then who the hell is left, you know? As far as the World Championship on the men's side is concerned, Hangman Adam Page retains over MJF, and that could have been a DQ, could have been a count out. Two different ways for MJF to potentially win the title, which of course they played into pretty well in the match. You know, MJF was handing him the Dynamite Diamond ring and trying to be like, you know, get yourself disqualified, hit me, and then you can drop the title and all. A couple little like a referee not paying attention things. I don't particularly love the way that the pinfall went down with the foot on the ropes and then the referee being out of it and not able to like finish calling the match, and then eventually waking up and being like, well, now his foot's on the ropes after 3 minutes or something. I don't love that. It seems a little hokey. So I think that could have been done a little bit better, but the overall concept of what they did here, that's pretty much what they should have done in my mind. So Paige retains, and it seems like afterward, now I wasn't paying attention to the press conference, but I saw a couple little things about this. It seems like they're changing the contract thing now to you need a 1 week advance for it, which I think is personally dumb. Now, I'm a fan of the Money in the Bank concept. I think that cashing in at random is fun. It's spontaneous. It doesn't have to happen like that. You're not, demanding that it has to happen like that every time. But when you set up just, I'm going to challenge for the belt next week, I think that there's no like real fun to it, because it's the same as just being announced as a regular number one contenders match or something. And every single week you get, hey, the next episode of NXT is also going to include this match. Well, next time on Dynamite, so-and-so is going to challenge for the whatever title. The cash-in thing is the fun thing. That's what makes it interesting. And when you rule out that it can happen at any given time, because at most, somebody like, let's say you're in the crowd at the O2 Arena, and you're like, man, I really am curious to see if MJF cashes in. And he goes, I'm cashing in. And next week, I'm going to... That's the same thing as what heels do to gain heat when they go like, yeah, we're not going to have that match on your time. We're going to have it on my time. And next week, we're going to fight whatever. And then the crowd boos. So I think that this is just a massive mistake. I think that this is Tony Khan overthinking things and thinking I can't do Money in the Bank because then people will accuse me of just biting off of Money in the Bank. So I'm just going to switch it up a little bit, which is, I think, if you can figure out a way to do something where it's a lateral move, that's one thing. If you can do an upgrade, that's even better. But if you're going to downgrade your concept because you're worried that people are going to think that you're stealing off of somebody, I think that you're better off just stealing off of them and then just doing it better. And then people won't care if you technically stole this idea. And it's not really the most like absolutely innovative idea that's ever existed either. So it's not like, they could like sue. It's not like you're calling this Money in the Bank. But the idea about doing like a reverse battle royal or a reverse Royal Rumble, it's so stupid. Don't do that, And I think that this is just one of those things where it's like, well, I can't do the Royal Rumble, so I'll do the Casino Gauntlet, because the Casino Battle Royale, for some reason, not a thing anymore. I can't do Money in the Bank, so I'm going to do the Chip or the Face of the Revolution ladder match. And then those things are not going to be Money in the Bank because it's going to be, I need to just book a championship in advance. These are number one contenders matches then. And then the number one contenders match just waits a while to become announced. I think that that's stupid. So I don't like that. I think MJF should be able to just cash in at random and just win the title. To each their own. If you disagree, leave a comment below. And there was the lights out steel cage match. Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Will Ospreay, and Darby Allin beat the Death Riders, or at least Claudio Castagnoli and Jon Moxley. The Wheeler Yuta got involved. The Young Bucks and Gabe Kidd. Solid match, solid steel cage. It's one of those matches where you put a bunch of people in a steel cage and give them a whole bunch of weapons. Is it going to be fun? Yeah. So it's fun. They beat the crap out of each other. I laughed at the, instead of the thumbtacks or the Lego pieces or anything that you would like pour out that would be like something to get, glass shards, whatever, that the Young Bucks had gummy bears in there. I thought that was pretty funny. Coming out to Mbop. Sure. I don't know how much he spent, but I guess it's worth it. And, it's not quite blood and guts, but they had a moment where Moxley was taking a fork and shoving it in Darby Allin's ear. So, I guess that's, you get your blood and guts when it comes to that. I enjoy matches like this, so I enjoyed this match. And babyfaces win in celebratory mode or whatever. Will Ospreay gets written off of television as well through the whole, like, you wrap a steel chair and kick it. So, the neck injury is going to play into this now. So it seems like he's going to get surgery. Swerve Strickland is going to be out. You got some other people that need to be coming in the mix and kind of like, building up some steam for this division and stuff. So we'll see where they go from there. But overall, Forbidden Door was another of the many, many, many different examples of a TNA show or an AEW show. Just looking at the results for the next thing. An AEW show where like predominantly good matches and not a whole lot of talking points to really dive deep into and really kind of like make me go, this is what's making me super excited going forward or whatever. It just sort of is what it is. And some of those things predictable, some of those things clearly not predictable because I got them wrong. So thumbs up, but it's not the most enthusiastic, like, oh my God, best thing ever type of thumbs up. Just like, yeah, it's a, it's an Orange Cassidy thumbs up. So let's put Forbidden Door off to the side now and talk about HEATWAVE. NXT HEATWAVE come about, half hour after Forbidden Door was over with. And that had some surprises in there for me too. Overall, of course, Forbidden Door, I think the better pay-per-view between them. I don't think that that's too much of a surprise, and people would hear me say that. Although people seem to think that I just absolutely hate everything related to AEW, and I'm like just, a WWE apologist. But WWE has stuff that's good and bad. AEW has stuff that's good and bad. First match of the night was a triple threat match for the number one contendership for the NXT Women's Championship. Pardon me a moment. Water is good. Water for health. And that I had said, kind of flip a coin. Is it Lola Vice? Is it Kalani Jordan? One of those two most likely is going to lose to JC Jane in the future. So you might as well just pick between them. Jada Parker doesn't strike me as the person who would win this. And lo and behold, Lola Vice pins Jada Parker, beats Kalani Jordan in the process. Now they've also clarified that this is leading to NXT No Mercy. That's September 27th, 29th. I think it's the 27th. And they already announced Lola Vice versus JC Jane. That's happening there. Jada Parker got upset backstage at one point. She was talking to the medic and she was complaining about Jada Parker. Jada Parker wasn't complaining about Jada Parker. Jada Parker was complaining about Lola Vice pinning her in the match. And Lash Legend came over to just continue their feud. So they didn't announce anything for Tuesday, but I am assuming that Jada Parker and Lash Legend end up getting into some kind of argument or scuffle over that. Culling had a vignette backstage. A tag team match is scheduled for this next episode of NXT on Tuesday. It's Izzy, Damon, Tatum Paxley against Ren Sinclair and Blank. So that Blank could be any number of people. They've set up some things. So it seems like it probably would be Kendall Gray and just kind of piggyback off of what happened on NXT. But they, for some reason, just haven't bothered. Well, I shouldn't say for some reason haven't bothered to say who. They think that the mystery angle is more interesting. So I don't blame them actually for that. Now that I'm saying that out loud, I don't think that saying, and Kendall Gray will be wrestling is really going to move anything. But if you say, and question mark, and some people are going to inevitably, because people do this, they're going to be like, oh, does that mean that Tony Storm is coming in or something? People do that all the time. The amount of times that I see comments or, interact with people that'll say like, I think that John Moxley is going to help out Roman Reigns or something. And you're like, he's signed to the other company as a top star there. It's not happening. Some people think that people are going to return all the time. It's always like Undertaker's going to come out and he's going to be fighting Gunther next. And you're like, probably not. Dark State wins the NXT tag team titles. That's not surprising. Osiris Griffin and Dion Lennox were the two that they had decided to go with during the match. But of course, Saquon Sugars and Cutler James get involved. And, it's like a 4-on-2 in a lot of ways. They haven't clarified if this does have a free bird rule. So at least for now, I have to kind of treat it like Lennox and Griffin are the two champions. And then Cutler James and Saquon Sugars aren't. But I'm pretty sure that even if they don't have that planned, that they're probably going to default into that at some point in the future, just because they're inevitably going to want to switch up the teams and stuff. And, if somebody gets hurt, like Lennox gets some kind of torn ACL, like everybody tends to do, then I could see it being a case where it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course, free bird rule. And they just kind of retroactively do that. But then again, I don't know where they're planning to do a whole lot of different things with these championships, because look at the state of the Heritage Cup. Where is that? nobody seems to care. Look at the speed titles, which was announced tonight, that the women's and men's speed championships are now going to be part of NXT. And on September 2nd, there's going to be this tournament that's going to start. Somebody from AAA, somebody from TNA, somebody from Raw, SmackDown, and NXT are all going to be involved. The winner of whenever this tournament wraps up and how they sort that out. They didn't do like brackets or anything yet. Just announced that. The winner goes on to No Mercy, another title match there, another women's title match, actually. And it's going to be the women's speed championship. So Sol Ruca defends against whoever it is, if it's the TNA person, if it's the AAA person, whoever it might be. I'm kind of hoping that it's one of those two, because I don't think that anybody from NXT is really all that interesting to see up against Sol Ruca right now for this speed title. And they also haven't clarified if the speed championship is going to continue to have the same rules, because it could very well just be like, this is a 5-minute match, or this is a 5-minute match, or this is a 10-minute match instead. Or maybe they go, you really want to just speed this up a whole lot, and it's a 3-minute match, or whatever. Maybe they decide that doesn't have a time limit, and maybe they are just kind of continuing these championships because they already spent the money on them. Maybe it's going to be like whoever gets the most pinfalls within a certain time frame. Like, they could change it up. Realistically, it's probably going to end up being that they just continued the 5-minute thing, and then it's just a 5-minute match thrown onto this card, and it's Sol Ruca against whoever. Maybe it's actually, who would be like a decent option on TNA. Like, I don't know anybody on the AEW, the AAA roster, so I can't even pretend on that front. But like, let's see, TNA roster. As far as the women's division is concerned, they don't even group them separately. They keep them all together. So maybe it's Sol Ruca against Zai Brookside. Maybe I hope that they don't bring Tessa Blanchard in for that. Could be Tasha Steelz if they want to give her a little spotlight. Probably not people from the Elegance brand. I would think it'd be very surprising if it's Mara Shade and they just bring Jakar Jackson back in for that. But I don't know. Maybe it's Xia Li. Maybe Lei Ying Li is the person that they go with. Whatever it might be. Sol Ruca up against one of those people, potentially. Maybe somebody from AAA. Maybe Raw or SmackDown. I don't know. But it's interesting that they're going to do something with the speed titles, at least. Back to Eva, she also announced that Lexis King and Miles Bourne are going to be in a blindfold match on NXT. So I'm far more interested in that than, like, to be perfectly honest, like almost anything that was set up here. That kind of includes AEW as well. Blindfold matches are horrible, and Miles Bourne and Lexis King having a blindfold match, I think, is kind of funny. Like, the concept that it led to this, I think, is funny. So I am eagerly awaiting Tuesday's NXT for that. What else do we have going on here? The TNA Knockouts World Championship. Speaking about TNA, Ash by Elegance beats JC Jean and Masha Slamovich. She pins Slamovich. So JC only held the TNA title for 36 days, and they felt the need to not put the belt on Jordynne Grace so that they could do this double champion thing with JC Jane. Instead, just for it to last a month, that's it. And then it's like, just Ash by Elegance wins, and, okay, going forward, let's see what happens on TNA. I don't watch Impact, so it's not like I'm going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to have to watch Ash by Elegance be champion or something. I didn't really honestly care when Masha Slamovich was champion either, so that's not like I'm, wishing that she would have won title or something. Neither was going to get me to start watching TNA with more emphasis. But the JC Jane element of it was like kind of interesting that they would at least have a double champion scenario, but she already loses it, so I guess it's like maybe Indy Hartwell beats Ash by Elegance at Bound for Glory, and they just wanted a transitional champion in the meantime. But that's, I don't know. That sucks. The whole like JC Jane thing, winning the title for what reason now? And, I'll kind of continue on with this. Blake Monroe beats Jordynne Grace because apparently Jordynne Grace just can't win anything. Somebody has it in their minds on the writing team, and then clearly gets the approval from Shawn Michaels or Triple H or whoever actually like signs off on ideas. Maybe it's just them in particular too. whoever it is, they like this idea of Jordynne Grace losing. And I'm convinced at this point that their thought process is we want to humble her and we want to make it seem like she can lose and that the fans are not upset with her winning, because we'll probably then have her like squash people and we'll probably do whatever. So let's make sure that that the fans want it really badly and that they are like clamoring for it. To me, that's a gamble, and it's a risk that can sometimes pay off, depending on most scenarios. It usually doesn't. And usually when it does happen, it's not something that's manufactured. It's usually something where it's like, Daniel Bryan or Cody Rhodes or something where like the people decide that they just want to cheer that person. And then WWE takes fucking forever and refuses to listen. So that's like when it naturally happens. But when they try to manufacture this and you try to go like, let's bury somebody so that people get mad about it, and then they get really excited when she wins eventually. For the people that aren't heavily invested in that particular person, let's be perfectly honest, the average person who watches NXT is somebody that's a little bit at least aware of Jordynne Grace, but at the same time, casual viewers aren't. And I could speak from experience. I'm sure my buddy Dane is listening to this, and I'm sure that he could leave a comment and agree with me wholeheartedly if I say, do you care necessarily about Jordynne Grace enough that you are like, oh, I'm wishing that she would win this championship and it's pissing me off that she isn't because she's such a big deal from TNA and blah, 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 blah. Like, I doubt it. I think that most people would be like, oh, I've seen a match or two of hers. And then when she loses and loses and loses, they just go, oh, I guess she like sucked. I don't know. She didn't seem like she's that fun or that great. Because she's not putting on performances that are like, it's going to win you over just by the performance. She's having as good of matches as people do in WWE, which is saying a lot. I always say this. If you take most people from the 2025 era, not even people that are like the top of the line, but even just most, they would get over so crazily in another era. We talked about it recently with Ashanti the Adonis. You take Ashanti exactly what he is right now, or just was recently, like in NXT. Take that guy and put him in 1996. The guy's winning the Intercontinental Championship in no time. He's over as all hell. He becomes a world champion. It's just because look at like Ahmed Johnson. Ahmed Johnson gets the Intercontinental title, and he's big. He's bigger than Ashanti, but there weren't people that were talking as well as Ashanti. And then as big, so to speak, as Ashanti, where he would have fit in perfectly fine amongst everybody else. So I don't think that Jordynne Grace has that kind of vibe going on where it's like she's standing out so far above the pack that like now in this era where there's so many good performers and practically everybody is at least a decent worker, and the few that aren't, it's very clear, like nobody's clamoring for a Jasmine Nyx match, but to single one person out, or Nikita Lyons, like it's not working. But then you get people like an AJ Styles, or you get like, say Io Sky, where it's like Io flips around and does crazy stuff. And if you're watching for the first time, you're going to like Io Sky. I don't think that there's anything that they're presenting with Jordynne Grace that's going to make me go, well, if you sat somebody down that's never watched this program, they're going to get hooked on Jordynne Grace. I think they'd be like, oh, so the bitchy, angry, mean girl won and the muscular girl lost. And that's it. So I think it's a mistake what they're doing with Jordynne Grace. And, JC Jane's champion right now. She's probably going to retain it a little bit longer, now that she lost the TNA Knockouts title. So I'm not anticipating Jordynne Grace wins this belt from JC Jane anytime soon. And I guess we're already going into September with the Lola Vice match. And then Halloween Havoc is October. So like maybe they do something by then, but I don't know. I'm not feeling it. We already talked about the Speed thing, already talked about Jada Parker. Ricky Sainz was backstage giving Javon Evans a pep talk. A little bit later on, Josh Briggs was backstage talking to Obafemi and saying, like, I'm next in line, but I think that you're going to lose the belt tonight, that kind of thing. But in the meantime, there was the mixed tag match. Ethan Page the NXT North American champion, and Chelsea Green beat Tyra May Steele and Tavion Heights. And I'm very shocked about that, because to me, that read as, it's pretty obvious how you can book some of these things. And again, to their credit, I don't know if they have a plan that I'm just not seeing, or if they just did something that really doesn't make any sense logically, because you never really know. We'll find out in a week or so, I think, if this is just like, that's really, really stupid and that's why it was unpredictable, or if it's like, oh, okay, you're going in that direction. Cool. To me, it was obvious. It was Tavion Heights gets a pin, or Tyra May Steele pins Chelsea Green, and then that way Heights gets a title match in the future. Like, he earns it by proxy of winning this tag match. They lost. So either Tavion Heights doesn't get a North American title match anytime soon, and this is all leading to nothing, or he does, but he has to now win something specifically, and they just thought that, Tyra May Steele should lose, and I don't know what the game plan would be if it's just like Tavion Heights beats there's a mid-carder right now in the mix there, Nico Vance or something like that. I don't know, but we'll see. I like Chelsea Green a lot. She's one of my favorite women on the roster. Ethan Page is one of my more favorite guys on the roster. So if they get a win, that's cool. Talked about the speed titles already, and then we got into the main event. So Obafemi retains over Devon Evans, and that again brings up just the question: why does WWE keep wanting to show people failing? What is with Grace that you need to book her for matches and have her lose all the time? Not that everybody can win everything all the time, but there seems to be like a, we like watching this person lose element, and that seems to be the case with Devon Evans. I think it's the same thing. To be perfectly honest, I think that they think giving somebody this constant almost there, but keeps losing, I think in their minds, the more you give them the title matches, the more that means that they prove that they could win the belt, and you shouldn't be calling them a loser because, man, they're so close. They're so close. Don't look at it as a bunch of fails. Look at it as a bunch of almost successes, which a lot of people don't do. And that eventually when they do win the title, that you're going to be like, oh my God, finally, this is the most amazing thing because I really wanted that person to win. Javon, it's over with the crowd. He's got a lot of fans that are really excited to see this guy and want him to be the North American champion, want him to win the Heritage Cup, want him to win whatever. Nobody really wants him to win the Heritage Cup because that thing sucks, but he's got his support. And if they would have gone with him over Obafemi, as much as Obafemi is great, I think that would have been something that people would have popped over. But instead, they want to do the whole thing where Javon basically has the match won, but the referees are all, that doesn't count. There's 2 referees and all this whole complicated thing. And instead, Obafemi retains. Ricky Saints has a little back and forth with him after the show, just being like, I'm next in line and all this. And they could go with Ricky Saints being the guy that beats Obafemi for the surprise win, the underdog, the smaller guy thing. Sure, Ricky Starks is a good talent and he makes sense as an NXT champion and all, but I just feel bad for Javon Evans because it's man, that guy could do it too. And he didn't need to be set up again to have another match to lose. Whether that's a matter of just that they want to keep telling that edging kind of story when it comes to Evans and Grace and all, or if they just had nobody else that they were confident in and they were like, you know what, Obafemi can't not be on this pay-per-view and everybody else is kind of blah. We don't want to see Obafemi against Sean Spears. We don't want to see Obafemi against the completely missing Tony D'Angelo again, whatever it might be. They might have just been let's just do Javon again because at least the match will be good. And the match was, it just sucks that he lost. As much as I like Obafemi, and Obafemi is one of my favorite people on the roster now too. So it's not a bad thing Femi retained. It's a bad thing that Javon isn't set up to succeed. And it's not a bad thing that Ricky Saints is line to potentially get the title. It's just a shame that Obafemi would have to lose it to him. You know what I mean? So, the pay-per-view was what it was. It's not something that I think is an amazing event that went down. I don't think that HEATWAVE and Forbidden Door are going to be on my best pay-per-views of the year list or anything like that. they served their purpose. They had some title changes. They had some surprises. Some things are going to look interesting going forward. Some things I think are pretty stupid and I'm not really particularly interested in. So it's kind of a wash one way or another. But we will see, of course, the breakdown of how they actually do the Fallout, starting with Tuesday with NXT. We got the AEW Dynamite episode on Wednesday. And then before we know it, there's another pay-per-view. So, next week we'll probably have another pay-per-view predictions or something. In the meantime, though, make sure that you do all the stuff that I mentioned before about checking out this marketplace stuff, showing your support, hit the like button, subscribe, ring that notification bell, send that thanks donation or the Patreon subscriptions or something like that over our way. Keep in mind, too, that you can follow a bunch of other things that I've got by going to my link tree at amangotree.com or anthonymango.com. They have the same list of links for everything that's on there. So if you want to follow this Mark Out Moment stuff, you want to follow Fanboys Anonymous stuff, you want to follow my, accounts. I don't post on a lot of things. Like I have a TikTok, but it's like, I posted 4 things on it. And it's just saying like, check out the Batman Blueprint. I'm not like actively doing content there. Letterboxd. Yeah. Every once in a while I tweet, but it's sort of just, I guess that's probably the best thing. If you really want to like actually interact with me in some fashion, it probably would be X, which I hate that that's the case because that sucks, but I don't really check out Blue Sky, so, maybe in the future I'll be more active on Blue Sky. I don't know. Whatever it might be, though, follow me on other things you're interested in. Tell me what you liked, what you disliked about Heatwave and Forbidden Door. Tell me what you're interested in seeing next on Smark Out Moment, Smack Talk Podcast, and anything else like that. And anything else you want to do, drop a comment below. I think that went over everything, so... thanks for listening. See you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.